Hey, this is Hollis Gainer coming at you again. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube One Source channel. Putting out some good information as always, and wanted to take a moment to speak with you. Some things I've been meditating on as of late. It's kind of a different spin and a different take than our relationship, but it does play into that aspect that I've been speaking of in regards to knowing who you are. As I've been meditating, I've been meditating on some things in my past and in my history that I'll be sharing with you, hopefully, during this segment. But I wanted to set the stage as we are, again, talking about relationships and talking about how we need to know who we are in that relationship, who we are to that person, and who that person is to us inside the relationship. One of the things that, again, I've been meditating on is the difference between past actions or events that happen in a person's life and their history. And it dawned on me that, when you go to a doctor, when you go to the hospital, they ask for your history. Are you allergic to penicillin? Do you have diabetes, or if you have diabetes in your family, or something that's hereditary in your family, so they can either they can plan their medical care off of what your history has been, not the past event that may have brought you to see them, or may have brought you to the hospital, so to speak, but they're basing it off of your history, so they can have an accurate picture of who you are, not that particular instance. So it led me to think and started me to thinking about how we allow past events, past actions that have happened in our lives to facilitate the way that we act, the way that we do things, and that has an adverse effect on who we think we are in a relationship. And it may not be a romantic relationship or a deeply involved relationship. It could be a friendship, and how we associate ourselves with our friends because of things that may have happened in our past. We may do things, or we may say things, or we may act a certain way because of past events or past actions by someone else that have caused or that have impacted upon us. Well, that's not your history, and it's not that person's history, but we tend to act accordingly. We tend to act with those past actions and those past events in our minds. And this is how I came to think about that as I'm, like I said, been meditating and doing some things that have helped me to understand who I am, better understand who I am, and better understand the actions that I've taken in my relationships in the past, and my actions that have brought about some of my past actions that may have caused to break up a relationship, or even caused me to hurt my spouse inadvertently without even knowing why I was doing it. So I had to take a closer look. Well, why did I do that? And I had to go all the way back to my history. And my story is, I acted towards my spouse in such a way that I didn't want her to see or know who I thought I was or was not, based off of an image or a perception that was false. And it allowed me to do things, or not allowed me, it made me do things that culminated into bad attitudes, bad habits, and bad decisions, bad actions, which allowed her, or made her, look at me through my past actions instead of my history. And I did the same with her. Well, she's acting this way because of past actions, not so much her history. although she may have, told me her history and explained her, some of her past and things of that nature, but I was looking at the past actions, and so she's looking at the past actions that I've done and made, and those past actions were based off of a history that I falsely created in my mind. Here's my example that I wanted to share with you. I held my father in such high esteem, such, like I said, on a platform, a pedestal, that, even when I spoke with him about it, he looked at me and shook his head and just laughed. He goes, "Where did you get that from?" He goes, and my relationship with him now is better than it has been in, I guess, the last 20 years, in which I had this image of him. And like I said, I had him on such a high pedestal in regards to, this is my father. How could I get to be in his family? How, he's done such remarkable things. He's, done this, and, he has this home, and he has this job, and, he went to night school in order to get his degree in order to be where he is now. And it's like, how did I ever get to be his son? I'm not even a tenth of the man or that his little pinky finger is. And that's what I had in my mind, that I will never be able to amount to this man. I will never be able to be who he is. So I'll never understand why he may, love me, or I'll never understand why he will be proud of me, because, there's nothing in my past or in my life that I have done that would even amount to him. So I carried that. And as I mentioned, if you've been watching my videos on relationship, that was a huge Louis Vuitton bag that I was carrying around with me in every relationship that I had, because what was deep within me and caused me to act a certain way, do certain things, was that I was afraid that people might see that I am nothing like my father. I'm not the man that he is, and they would leave. They would scurry away. Disappointed, hurt, disillusioned. Wow, you're his son, and I thought, you should be at least, half the man that he is. So that's what I perceived myself to be, and I based my decisions on an image that was false, which led to past actions, past events that culminated into, broken relationships, a divorce, and issues between my wife now, because albeit that was my mindset, and she's looking at my past actions as, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're always going to do, without knowing why. Until I analyzed it and said, you know what? My past actions aren't the culmination of my history and my story. And it's the same with anyone that's in a relationship with a friend or anything, anything that you do, or any relationship that you're involved in. You have to understand, why do I do the things that I do? What is the history? What is the history of my life? What's the history of my family? Why do I do the things that I do? Make the decisions that I make. Is it based off of what has happened to me in my past, certain past events, certain past actions that people have made towards me, that have allowed me to, form opinions, attitudes, and habits based off of those past actions and events? Now, don't get me wrong, those things may add up to be a part of your story, but however, they're not the sum of your history. And when you break the word history apart, it's his story. It's your story. When historians look at the past and they see all the events culminating up to how a civilization or how someone came from where they are or where they were to where they are. They take into account every significant thing that may have happened, good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, and they expand it over that person's lifetime. Now we do it with presidents. We do it with well-known figures that have had an impact on American history. But what we don't see is the past actions of that person. Some things made that were significant, that helped shape history, yes, those past actions were there. All we know with Thomas Edison is that, it took him 10 tries to develop the light bulb. Well, what about the past actions that he had? The bad things that he did? Did we know about those? No. We just know his history. There's a famous Asian fighter who wrote the book, the Book of the Five Rings. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm going to butcher his name. But the gist of it, and those that may know, do some research on the Book of the Five Rings. And like I said, I'm not going to mention his name because I know I'll butcher it. But he started out as a sword fighter, masterful, brilliant, and he went about the Japanese countryside, challenging those who were good in their cities, good in their towns, good in their clans, and he challenged them. And ultimately, he won the challenge. That's how he got to be good. That's how he got to be famous, or a part of it anyway. But nobody remembered, or better yet, nobody really focuses on the lives that he took. The husband that wasn't coming home that day, or the brother that wasn't coming home that day. They focused on his memoirs, which is the Book of the Five Rings. And as his life has progressed, and as his life had progressed, he knew that he had, I made some bad decisions in my past. And because I thought this way caused me to do the things that I had done. But now that I see the error of my ways, now that I see that, this doesn't have to be my history. This doesn't have to be my story. I can recreate my story. I can reinvent my story. And that's going to go into another segment, if you stay with me long enough, as where I've been meditating on recreation and reincarnation. That'll be a deep one. So I've had some really intellectual talks about that. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, that's where he comes into, again, hey, I can recreate myself. I can reincarnate myself and do good. And that's what led me to my change. That, I've made some past mistakes. I've turned right when I should have turned left. Made more left-hand turns at Albuquerque than I can shake a stick at. But however, I realized as I look back over, well, why did I do those things? My history. I realized that, that's not a part of my family history. We don't have diabetes, or we don't have cancer, we don't have this. I'm not allergic to penicillin. Well, now, physician, heal thyself. I am my Father's son, and I've done good things. I am capable of doing the same things that he is capable of doing. And I have done some good things. And I'll do more good things. But that'll be a part of my story. That'll be a part of my timeline. That'll be a part of who I am going to be and who I choose to be. But that's what I wanted to share with you. Like I said, as a little segue, again, stay with us. Stay with one source. Like I said, putting out some good information here. Wanted to leave that with you. Next is going to talk a little bit more into who you are and who you are inside the relationship and who you are to your spouse. So stay with us. Again, it's one hope, one love, one source. My peace I give to you. My peace I leave with you.